business is introducing our members beginning on my left.
Mary Dickerson, Economic Development Coordinator.
Carrie Ann Hahn, Consultant Town Planner.
Ashley Majorowski, Land Use Administrator.
Bruce Tyler.
Chantal Foster.
Marilyn Freeman.
Terry Grady.
Okay, next order of business to
Yeah.
accept.
You forgot
Oh, sorry.
Deborah Pazzetti secretary.
Okay, next order of business is to accept the agenda. I'd like to make some changes. First of all, eliminate item 6, the planning and conservation and development. And then,
No, we got a new agenda.
This is the new agenda. So just go over.
this is the one I got in there.
Yeah, we got a new.
You did. It's in there. Okay. Well, I thought that you said it was all there.
Item 7, I'm going to eliminate item
I
7.
said I wasn't going to look at it.
The plan of conservation and development, and move the continuance of the public hearing down to after item 10. So it'll be the last thing. We'll do everything else first. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Give a second.
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, we've got an agenda. All right, first order of business then is going to be application 17-08, 47 Lower Main Street, request for site plan review for 36 feet by 73 feet addition to a previously approved medical marijuana production facility. Application of property of Connecticut Pharmaceutical Solutions, LLC, Assessors Map 19, Lot 82, Zone I. Somebody here to speak for that?
I am. Mr. Chairman, my name is Pat Benjamin. I'm a professional engineer for the firm Bascom and Benjamin. My office is located at 360B Main Street in Durham. And we're here for a site plan modification to an existing facility that already received its special permit. This is located at 47 Main Street. It's for Connecticut Pharmaceutical Solutions. It's 0.93 acres, almost 1 acre in the industrial zone. And just so you know where it's located, I'm sure you do, this is Main Street located right here, Brownstone Ave. This is the parcel, and it's an existing conditions plan. And you can see this on the photograph. This is the existing parcel that's located right here. This white building, that's the existing facility. There's parking along the eastern side, and there's parking in front, and there's 2 dumpster locations located right now, and there's an existing loading dock located right here. They have a gated entrance that's located off of Airline Ave. And what they would like to do is to add on a 36 by 73 proposed addition. It's 2,628 square feet. So this is a copy of the site development plan, 1 inch equals 40 Street, Main Street, Brownstone Ave. Here's the existing building, which is in orange. And this is the proposed addition. So it's to the rear of Main Street, and it's to the east of Brownstone Ave. The entrance would remain the same. Everything in front of the building would remain the same. You would enter through the gate. The existing parking, if you look at it, is located right here on the eastern side. It has to be pushed back into a grass area about 13 to 15 feet. The parking would get pushed back. They need to build 4 pads for utilities, air conditioner chillers. That building would have no loading dock. It would just have 1 door. It would be attached to the existing building. The existing loading dock would remain. The existing dumpster locations would remain. Right now, there's 18 spaces. They're going to have 17 when this is done. By the time they put the addition in, we couldn't save all of the spaces. Based on the zoning regulations, they're required to have 10 spaces. So they will have 17, which is enough for the employees and the people that work there. The most cars they usually will ever have there is 16 cars. One of the questions from Jeff Jacobson after we revised the plan from him was we didn't show the loading dock or the loading area, which we typically do for a proposed site plan, but this is existing. It's already located right here. There's a loading dock right here, and they have a smaller one here. Most of the vehicles that go in and out of here for delivery are the shorter FedEx vans, so there aren't large trucks that can get in and out of the site. It's too tight for that. I did see the comments from the Public Works Director, and we do agree to those. Right now, there's a building to the east that has a sanitary sewer which goes into this property. There isn't an easement for it, and Rick Kelsey wasn't exactly sure where it is. He believes it comes in this location. So when they build the addition, he believes that we are going to hit it, and what we're required to do is just take that sewer and just reroute it to the existing manhole on the property. He also wants the owners to grant the people next door an easement. When we find it, it may not be there. So we have met with him, and we would agree to do that. I did read all the other comments that were sent to the applicant and to my office, and we don't have a problem with those either. And that's essentially it. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, any questions from members of the commission?
Just there are the questions about parking, that's all
Right.
set? Okay.
Yes, yeah. He apparently in your regulations, there's a line that says when you have more parking that's required, based on the number of employees, we're supposed to give you a reason. And the reason is they have that many employees. So there's I'm not sure why that's in there. Just so there isn't an increase in impervious area, I would assume.
I mean, the only issue that I saw when driving by was that it did look like there were a lot of cars on the property, and cars are currently parked where that building is supposed to be. So I was just wondering how, if that was all gonna work.
Every once in a while, I know they do have parking in here, but they've told all the employees they will have to park in these spaces. When I've been here, there's been some here also. I think it's easy to get in and out, but there were some spaces over here that were empty. So the most that I've seen on the site, as well as Jeff Jacobson, is 16. The owners and the applicant know that the most we can get based on this plan is 17 spaces, and they were okay with that.
And the storage containers?
There's 2 storage containers right now that they want to have separated from the building. That area, the same area as those, they want to transfer just over to here. They have a door that's located here, so they want to move those containers right here behind the building so they have access to them.
Okay, because the note, we presume that they'd be removed and not relocated.
No, I told Jeff Jacobson that they were going to be relocated, so we showed them relocated. And he reviewed this plan with them shown relocated.
Other questions or comments?
And so the elevation is above the flood?
Yes, correct. There's a floodplain, the AE zone runs right through here. The existing building and the proposed building, the slab elevation is above the 100-year floodplain.
Other questions or comments? Okay, then a motion?
Motion to approve application 17-0847 Lower Main Street, request for site plan review for a 36 by 73 foot proposed addition to a previously approved medical marijuana production facility. Application and property of Connecticut Pharmaceutical Solutions LLC, assessors map 19, lot 2, zone I, as shown on map entitled Connecticut Pharmaceutical Solutions LLC, existing conditions and site development plan, dated November 11th, 2017, and based on testimony presented and the following instructions that are integral to this approval. 1, that this approval will expire in 5 years. 2, that the owner applicant address the comments from the building official dated 11/27/17. 3, that the owner applicant address the comments from the deputy fire marshal dated 11/24/17. 4, that the owner applicant address the comments from the director of public works dated 11/28/17. 5, that the owner applicant address the comments from the town engineer's memos dated 11/29/17 and 12/5/17. 6, that any new exterior lighting and signage be approved by the zoning enforcement officer prior to installation. 7, that the certified letter of approval be placed on the plan. 8, that 3 paper copies and a Mylar of the plan be submitted to the planning department and for endorsement by an officer of the commission. The Mylar shall be filed on the land records within 180 days as per zoning regulations, section 10.5.3.2.a. 9, that an E&S bond in the amount to be determined by the town engineer be submitted prior to any land disturbance activities as per zoning regulations, section 11.2.1. 10, that the E&S controls be installed by the applicant. and be inspected by the town staff prior to any land disturbance activities. 11, that a zoning permit is required prior to initiating any land disturbance activities associated with this approval. Reasons, the proposal conforms to sections 6.1, 6.2, 10.5.2, and 10.5.2 of the zoning regulations.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Nay? All right, the motion passes and the application is approved.
Thank you.
Next order of business is staff report. Any staff report? No. Next order of business is public comment for items not on this agenda. Is there any public comment? No. All right, the next order of business is the approval of minutes for November 16th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, those minutes are approved. All right, next order of business is the public hearing, which is, oh, new agenda was that?
I think they're all signed.
Okay, I missed it. Yes, I have the old agenda.
To receive, it's right.
I see. Receive an application, we don't have to have a motion to receive an application.
We just have to set the date.
The question is, we'll set a date is the next meeting.
January 18th is what they requested.
Oh, all right, then January 18th, is that that's what we want to do? That's fine, we don't need a motion for that. Okay. So now we are back to a continuance of the application 17-06. I understand that you guys have an application proposal to make.
We have some revisions that we've submitted.
Okay, yeah, I have stacked of these, but we just got these back. I haven't even looked at them. So, is there some statement or?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were going to have your review comments presented and then we go in response to that a little bit. I wasn't sure what
Well,
the schedule. I mean, I don't care. We can just show what we.
we're flexible.
No, I wasn't requesting it. I thought that maybe that was going up, but it doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to get up and we can start our.
You can kind of do whatever you want.
All right.
It's clear.
Well,
It's
great.
clear to me.
No, you stop talking. I'll go with that.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I'm only one vote. I mean, this is in terms of making, applying, giving us information. We got a lot of stuff here.
Sure.
I mean, there are some pretty substantial.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to talk
So I
through.
think it would be good.
Oh, no, we should just kind of continue our presentation from last time where we incorporate what we've just submitted.
Yeah, and we're gonna have.
And why, frankly, that's what I'd like to.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a continuance anyways.
Yeah,
Okay.
we would hope to close at the next meeting, but let's show you what what we got.
That sounds fine to me. Right
Excellent, great. So, shall I go up here?
Electo?
Yes. Sure.
Okay, great. And I'll just kind of make some general comments, and then we'll turn it over to Paul to take you through the actual changes. So, good evening, everybody. So,
Starting with your name.
I am Dan Bertram, the applicant, representing PRT DeMarco, PTP LLC. Good? Okay. So we're here tonight on a large sort of conceptual issue on the residential buildings primarily.
Changing slide.
Sure, thanks. So if we go back a couple years, we always had a layout of the project that had buildings E and F as residential only, and we had a conversation with the staff when we were reviewing the original regulations, and had a different interpretation from her as was taken later on. And we had a couple of meetings about what we could do. This is relating to the building heights for buildings E and F, going over 35 feet. And so the language in the regs talks about the need for 30% of the first floor to have a commercial component to go over 35 feet, and then there are setback requirements from there. So in stepping back and saying, okay, we understand how a third-party reviewer would look at this differently, and candidly, I have no quarrel with that. We submitted, we actually started to do modifications to it that I think have turned out to be quite interesting, and Paul will take you through it. I will, after we show you what we came up with and why, which was to incorporate a commercial component and a residential component into building A, which got taller than 35 feet because of the accommodation of the Hart Jarvis house needing to be flat all around it. So that building got a little taller. But we'll not do this in the abstract. I'll let them go through. Paul, you can come on up. I'll make one last comment. There is a piece of the plan that is a little hard from a market perspective. I'll take you through that at the end and refer to another submission we're making. But for now, let's show you the way that we incorporate commercial onto the first floor of buildings E, F, and A.
Thank you. You might want to stand by just in case I have questions that need to be answered. Hi, for the record, I'm Paul Harris. I'm going to move this mic so I can see the screen a little better. Is it possible to get this screen any brighter, or is that as bright as it gets? Maybe the lights coming down would help. Great. If we could go to the, is there a clicker?
Yeah. Mary just put it up here for you, right here.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I'll give this a shot. Do I have to point it?
Do we point it up that way, or?
Nope.
No.
Okay. You're all familiar with the plan that we came with at the last hearing. And the buildings that Dan was just speaking about are buildings E, F, and A. And because of the interpretation, we have gone back to building E, and we have carved out 30% of the first floor for commercial, retail, or office. And we have done the same thing with building F. These two areas have actually worked out quite well, and you'll see in the drawings to come. At the same time, once those units that we've pulled out of these two buildings, we have incorporated them into a second level in building A, which have also turned out quite well and have pretty spectacular view sheds south toward the river. An interesting dynamic began to unfold as we began to rework F and E. Primarily was we were actually creating commercial space along this edge, which kind of dragged or actually pulled the commercial retail space up along this perimeter. So that the entire heart of the campus has retail and commercial space kind of facing this area with the residential component along the outside edge, which we think is very nice. In doing that, we created with CCA pedestrian crossing points here between A and F and between the facades of F back to E. So there's actually a visual linkage for pedestrian traffic. And we've also brought in an additional sidewalk off of Marlborough, which comes in all the way along this building here as well. Some of the other changes that have happened to the site, Steve from CCA will go over after I. So let's talk about the first Here we go. The only change to the parking level from last time, as Dan commented on, we used to enter the parking garage. This is Building E. Orient everybody. This is Marlboro up here. And we used to have the parking entrance to the garage here. We've since shifted it back into this corner. It's the only change to that plan. The primary change is on the ground level, and this is that retail office piece. It can be used as a single tenant, it can be used as multiple tenants, it could be retail, it could be professional offices, and it actually plays with its own sidewalk and entry point down here to the south. It still works off this main terrace, which covers the parking garage, and there's still an entrance off Marlboro to the residential component. There we go. I do have a rendering of this building, but the color elevations I don't have. The big change that you'll see that happens across the front, this is the north facade, which is along Marlboro, is that we would like to articulate the commercial component on these buildings without changing them too much. And so what we look to do is introduce a greater amount of a brick facade. So everywhere where we have our commercial component on the first level, we are going to encapsulate that whole two-story facade in brick, which is what you see here. So the whole west facade that pretty much runs down facing the west will all be brick. And what you're seeing here is still a component of the residential lobby, which is the elevator lobby and stairwell. But all along here is opportunities for either a single tenant or multiple tenants, and some areas for some signage. Sorry, I'm going to click this right. The south elevation, which is the one across the top, this is the one that faces the courtyard in Building F, has kind of a grand entry into this end of this building. So this whole block is that piece of C that sticks out and faces F across from it, and it's bedded with a nice set of stairs that come up to it, with that crosswalk, with a marquee entry covered roof here, and then again some areas for some signage. The last elevation to this building is along Perry Street. Oops, now it's moving quicker than I wanted, which is along Perry Street, if I can come back to that. Where we have a slight retaining wall as we come down because when we flip the entrance to the parking, we needed a little bit of a retaining wall here, and Steve can get into that when he comes up. The second building, this is Building F, so your courtyard is up here. You still drive along the back. The entry into the parking garage is where it was the last time you saw this. However, the main level, first floor, coming. There it comes. There's our retail component here, which actually happens to be broken because we need an egress, a second egress out of the end of this courtyard, or this end of apartments. But again, we have the main entrance, which is up here, which is directly across from E. The elevator bank comes up from the garage, which services the apartment floors above, and the commercial space kind of pulls down and around. And again, this whole facade faces west. This is the north facade, which faces back up. This is your big open courtyard. So again, we're copying that same kind of look that we had on Building E. It's all brick on the lower levels with your retail component here. And then the western facade that faces Building A is here. Because we need to get access to the commercial spaces along this side, we're actually running a terrace along here, which allows you to get in this door here. But the same concept. The marquees at the major entry points, and then some areas for some signage for single or multi-tenant. The rear or south elevation of this building is somewhat the same. We have a little bit more brick, but the entry into the garage is there. And then the elevation along Perry Street, which is the east facade, hasn't really changed all that much since the last time you saw it. Oh, it's a little blurry. However, this is that back three-quarter view of Building E. Marlboro Street is out front here. What you see is the parking lot goes down, the entry into the garage is over here. There's a kind of a promenade walkway along the commercial. There are certain marquees that cue you into where entry points are. The main entry into the south facade is here with the stairs that come up, and this is that kind of nice walkway with vegetation and trees along it that links the facade of Building E to Building F. What you kind of see in this is the kind of a pool area, which isn't articulated because we actually have a lot more trees in this area and some landscaping, but it's difficult to see the building, so we've kind of stripped that away to make that a little easier to see. But you can see again, the brick has become more prominent here. We've actually pulled the brick up on the balconies for the apartments up here to give more privacy to the people who are there. So this balcony is more of a parapet with a brick wall, whereas the upper levels are more open with balusters, and as you get across to the rest of the residential units, they all have open balusters. But again, you know, it integrates into this facade, which is a little bit different look to that. The facade out on Marlboro hasn't changed much, with the exception of, again, this commercial component that turns along the kind of village green. So where the gazebo is, which is over here, you know, pedestrians can still come in and gain access to these things. If this is a professional office, a pediatrician or a dentist, you know, it's kind of nice that there's this kind of open park out in front of it, which kind of lends itself very well to that, as opposed to the retail piece. Building A has everything that you've seen on Building A for the north facade, which is this facade that faces the main parking lot in Marlboro, and the west facade, which is at the end that faces Main Street, has not changed at all. There was a slight discrepancy in our first drawing, which has to do with this corner. This corner is actually sunk because when the main road comes into this intersection, the grade or the roadway here is about 24 inches higher than this open courtyard. So on Steve's drawing, he can speak to that, but I can also show you that when we get there. This is kind of a softened road edge here, which has some low shrubs to it because the actual plaza in front of this building is sunken, and I can show you that when we get to it. The lower level, which is the restaurant level, this is at the end with the sunken court across, which faces west, and Main Street hasn't changed since the last time you saw it, with the exception of there's an egress stairwell that comes down through it from 2 floors up and lands you out here. The first level, or the primary retail block, which is coming, I hope. There it is. Oh, it went back again. It's a little hair trigger. Try that. Okay. That was that egress well here, but again, the main parking lot, which is out front here, this is the corner that comes around the northeast corner of the building. That's that little sunken plaza there. So this grade is level with the ground, but this is actually a sitting wall inside that kind of courtyard. It's probably 24 inches at this corner, and I'm sorry, the whole wall is 24 inches above the actual plaza, but from grade, it sticks out of the ground here 24 inches, and it's flush with the grade at this corner. The only changes compared to what we had last time is that we now have a split use on the second level. Half of it is commercial office, and the other half across the back of the building will be residential. So what we had once was a single lobby. We've created a double lobby here. The right side or west lobby would be for the offices, where you'd have its own stair. Even though they're all linked, there's a visual cue that brings you in. There's a main stair that comes up into this lobby with its own designated elevator that brings you to the second floor, and then the residential component comes in over here. It has its own lobby with its own designated elevator that brings you up to that level as well. The second floor, the unit count that we had pulled out of buildings E and F, which were 9 units each. What you're looking at here is a schematic, the space allowance for 18 units. So the units that we had pulled out of E and F, we have plugged in across the back of this, which is facing the south. That residential elevator comes up here. There's a lobby and a series of corridors that brings you to all the units. The office elevator comes up here, where they actually have a joint egress stairwell in the middle, and then the designated egress for the apartments are here, and the office is here and there. But these units, the unit count is the same that we had in the other buildings, and the one-bedroom, two-bedroom efficiency, and the bulk of these have their own terraces, which are quite nice, and the views off the back of these will be very desirable. The building elevations, okay. It's a little tough to see at this scale, it's a little dark. But that whole front facade we just talked about hasn't changed a bit. This is still primarily all offices. However, this little corner of the building down here is residential. You can see this little sliver of grade that climbs, so that little courtyard in front of this corner here is actually kind of set down behind that soft bank. The western elevation, which is here that faces Main Street, has not changed, with the exceptions we've added a egress door that comes out here. The tower, which is pushed back, there's a little bit of change to that, which I can get to as we turn the corner. So this is the southern elevation that faces the river and the back parking lot. So this corner of the building, which is as it was rendered and designed prior, is still there, but then the second level is actually recessed back, and we have a whole series of terraces with privacy partitions that run between them all across the back of the second story, which accentuate all those views and gives you outdoor spaces. And then the lobby, the two lobbies, the office lobby and the residential lobby are split. They have their own stairs that come up to them. They can have their own signage over them. There's a handicap ramp that can bring you up for both. And a slight change to that facade with windows. So these are a mixtures of windows and doors up there. And then the last facade, which faces east, this is where we come out with that new pedestrian crosswalk that goes straight over to Building F. That facade has been slightly changed because the second story here has been pushed back because there's a whole series of balconies that wrap that corner as well. And with that, that pretty much takes me through the architectural changes, which are fairly modest from where we started. But we feel we've...
That's all this stuff we gave us today?
That's all that stuff, yes. But I also have a handouts, which is this, which might be a little easier for you guys to read if I can hand those out.
Okay.
And I think I'd like to introduce Steve.
Yep.
For the record, Steve Sullivan, professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut from CCLC in Brookfield, Connecticut. If I could have Matt go to the, yep, okay. Where's the light on this? Paul?
Where's the light? You don't have one. You gotta use mine. There you go.
Okay. So, based on the redesign of some of the AE and F, we had to make some site changes. These are still work in progress. We're also coordinating the consultant's comments as well. Some of the changes, the building heights. So building E, we took the average finished grade around the building 10 feet off the building. To the mean level between the eave and the ridge of the building, and that comes out to be 47.6 feet high, and it results in a setback requirement for building E of 21.3 feet, and that building, and that's along Perry, and that building is situated where it is 27 and change, essentially, along that side. Building F, again, with the average finished grade around the building, 10 feet off of it, that building height is at 62.18. That translates to a building setback along Perry of 28.6, and that's what we have. That the closest point is a bump out right there at 28.6 to the property line. Building A, again, with the average finished grade. There's actually there's a zero setback along the rear property line, but when you take into account the height of Building A over the 35 feet, Building A is at 43.6 feet, so the additional setback was 4.3 off of the property line, but that building is 70 feet off the property line, so we more than exceed that setback. As Paul had mentioned, we did cut back this retaining wall, the sitting wall here. The next iteration plans, you'll see some landscaping in that area. We also, one of the comments was about providing a wider buffer between Building D and Marlboro. We narrowed up that driveway, that's the drive-through, from 24 to 18 feet. So we made that 6 feet wider there, that landscaped area. We did move the sidewalks that were closer to buildings E and F, and we moved them 3 feet off of Perry Avenue. There's only one little area where we bump into a utility pole that we had to bump around and tie into the driveway, but the two sidewalks along this way were moved closer to Perry. We did have a meeting with the Public Works Director, Rick Kelsey, a couple weeks ago. That went well. We was able to coordinate a lot of the utility work with him. So we're continuing to progress on answering all the comments that were provided to us by the town's various consultants, and we're going to resubmit answers to all those comments and a new set of site development plans in the near future. But we wanted to present the changes to one of the bigger comments with regard to Building E and F and the 30% of commercial and the building height and setbacks associated with that. So with that, we can take any questions.
Okay. So, do we have the lights back up again, so I can see? Thank you. In the earlier plan, I had a number of comments, and that I'm not sure were answered, but I have some other questions too. The first one is the use of brownstone, and Mike, I'm gathering you really don't want to do that, or you've done enough, so that's fine. Second one is the traffic pattern around the drugstore, which I guess is more of a business decision than anything else. And if you want to have a awkward drive-through, that's fine with me. I'm still not clear about the use of the courtyard, so maybe somebody can tell me about that.
You're talking about any?
For E and F?
I'm talking about A, actually.
A, right in the corner here?
The two courtyards.
The building that you're,
Yep.
that you were building A.
Yeah.
Right.
this- Right here and here.
Yes.
Well, those are just outdoor areas, patios that, you know,
There's no particular purpose for them?
It does. It gives a little primary area outside these, whether it's the restaurant in the lower corner or, you know, the retail space at the end to create an area where people can congregate.
Okay.
Other than a sidewalk under a covered thing. So whether there's a bench there or sitting wall, it just gives you room for people waiting for someone shopping to hang out, something like that.
Next one is swimming pool safety. That strikes me as, I know you don't have a lifeguard. That strikes me as a liability issue, but if that's what you want, if you want to assume that liability, that's up to you. The next one is the number of parking places. I know you reduced it slightly, but I'd be interested in reducing that more if it meets your business plan. And particularly, we've got too much impermeable surfaces, you know, and so that's debatable. The next one is, the priorities you set for residential versus commercial construction, and you told me that was going to be like 2-to-1, residential versus commercial.
If I may interrupt, because of these changes on buildings E and F with the additional commercial, we are at 38% for phase one. We are at 38% for residential and 32% for commercial.
That sounds much better. Thank you. Some new questions that are environmental, I guess is the best way to put them. Talk to me about the heating and cooling systems that you have planned for this complex.
Generally natural gas,
Well, our fuel source would be the natural gas. But again, that would be prepared during the building permit phase for MEP drawings.
For both heating and cooling?
As of right now, yes.
Okay.
Oh, heating.
Yeah.
All right. During construction, there are two questions. First of all, the use of VOCs. You plan to minimize that, hopefully?
I don't see any use for VOCs, quite honestly.
Oh, good. None is even better.
Not that I'm home. Yeah.
Well, oftentimes in construction materials, they do that. So, you know.
We would, yeah, we would.
VOC free would be a sustainable green practice.
Right, but that would not be, the market, we would use best practices, but we wouldn't want to commit to zero VOCs that introduce a non-standard construction cost for the product of this type. So I don't have any knowledge of VOCs, I just am,
Okay.
I'm commenting more that I don't know.
You know, that shows up in construction materials and carpeting and all kinds of things. So you're gonna minimize that.
Yeah, I would say we will.
If not eliminate it, we'll certainly minimize it.
Sure.
Okay. And lastly, what are your plans about recycling construction materials? Do you have any?
Well, you're gonna use some of them.
Well, are you talking about the materials that are on the site, or what happens with the stuff that leaves the site?
Yeah, anywhere from materials that you trim or don't use to the boxing material.
Yes.
New construction.
Any kind of construction materials. You have you know, they're able to drive in the state to increase recycling and to minimize waste. I'm sure you know that already.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me comment on that when we do our other answers to the reviewers' comments.
Okay.
So in terms of how we would incorporate that, I just don't want to overstate something now that the construction people haven't signed off on. We have to make the numbers work. That's all.
Okay. Questions by other members of the commission?
I'm not sure if I asked this question already, so
Sure.
forgive me if I did.
No, no,
but
no.
Are all of the electrical utilities going to be underground in the complex?
Yes, yeah, we would not build
I
that.
did ask.
No, I don't think you did. But we would go underground for sure.
I have a lot of observations and comments, and I'll take this and ask them at the next meeting. But I do want to mention my concerns about the drive-through in the coffee shop. I've seen, you know, if we're using Starbucks as an example.
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
I've seen lines of cars literally wrapped around a Starbucks. There's a new one in Middletown on Washington Street. And when I saw that, and I have to go on record as saying that I am kind of an anti-drive-through person to begin with, but when I saw that, I thought to myself, you know, that would, in addition to making it dangerous and unattractive, it would kind of prevent people from going to that place and doing what you or what we all want them to do, which is kind of hang out a little bit. So I'm just throwing that out there for people to think about. It is a major concern for me.
Understood. Okay.
And I think there were comments about that from one of the reviewers. Yeah, I saw that, I think, from.
Or some focus on the, actually, you can speak to that, Steve,
Yeah, I
in terms
do,
of what you
there's a
did.
queuing comment, so we have provided the next iteration plans will have a diagram of our queue area for that. I believe that's the question you were referring to.
Right.
And I'll bring you a picture that I took of the Starbucks with the, it's just the
You know, it's,
reality, you know?
it's funny, we had a lot of debate about this in terms of the queue design size and what was appropriate, and you're always balancing things in terms of the marketability. And I brought up, I was living in California a couple of years ago, and In-N-Out Burger, there was no queue size that was enough. They probably have 30 cars, and they figured it out how to actually come out and go to your window and get your order so that they can keep moving. I mean, it's just, some things are very popular, and that works. Now, we're not trying to do something like that. We're trying to keep it to a known thing. We're trying to be attractive to Starbucks well, very specifically. We would love to have them. And I think the town overall would. It's a matter of dealing with their requirements. Same thing with the CVS conversation, you know, in terms of just kind of getting them to the table. So.
But not all Starbucks everywhere have drive-throughs.
No, I know, and you're always balancing the desirability of the market to the person you're trying to get, or the entity you're trying to get, with, you know, what you can give and what you can withhold, and still do the deal.
On the north side of the street, that would be a real concern.
Pardon me?
Were it on the north side.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking that
Morning traffic.
if somebody wants to go to Starbucks and you know, buy a superior cup of coffee, but you know,
Hang on.
maybe that'll get cut off. You know, there is a coffee drive-through place, like, you know, you can see it, I think, from there. Do you know what I'm saying? So if
Oh, I
somebody
do.
really didn't want to get out of their car, they could go there. I just think that they would have a different experience at Starbucks, and I'm worried that that line of cars is going to kind of turn people off, and that's it. That's
No,
all.
and I certainly respect the comment. I think that I'd prefer not to have a drive-through. I'm just trying to have a tenant, right? and to program an experience overall. And as our partners talk about retailers, they're sheep, right? They like to huddle together, right? And so you have to put a few of them where you say, okay, we're going to have this, that, and the other thing, and then you can get some progress. But it's hard to get one to separate from the group and start this. So we're trying to program it to the most likely. And we actually are at ICSC in New York, which is a big industry retailer show. Yesterday and today, our DeMarco's partners, their leasing group, are out here, you know, pitching this. And so we're trying to get the engine turning. And we're trying to do as few non-standard things as possible while balancing all of the things that this project has become in terms of the historic pieces and all that. And it's an art, because this is as good a time as any to kind of throw out the other considerations on our side and what debates we had when we said, okay, in order to keep this project moving, because if we withdraw and rework the whole thing and go come back, we'd be talking about several months, and we decided let's just try to get this commercial component in. It helps that balancing, phasing conversation, as Steve just alluded to. And we really thought that this area here, if we go, let's see, the shared space between F, right, this side of F and this side of A, would give you, as you came down the main entrance, right, would give you a nice feel for commercial overall, and then going this way, you've got commercial all the way through the rest of the site. So this is why when we started the conversation internally, we said, okay, this building here, we can pull that off. So we can get, and we pulled 9 units off of it, and Paul took you through what the changes were. That's going to be pretty neat. this is all good. As you get up here on this wing of E, we're speculating a bit, design-wise, best practice-wise. So let me give you the debate that we had internally. You like to be able to drive up to where you're going in and have the visibility the way that you have with this whole parking field. It's the other thing that drives this requirement for the rest of A. We don't have that opportunity when we get up to E. We have a little bit of parking right here, right? And then you have a whole wing of the building. So that is our concern about how much you can come in and not just have to park really far away to get to these spots. I argued internally that it's offset by the tremendous visibility that you have from being, we had that perspective shot of this corner of the building at the main entrance. So as you're coming in and going out, you see these spaces, even though your access to them is not great, you see them. So we hope that that will make up for a demerit on the design otherwise. So I don't know, and I got our partner to go along with saying, okay, let's get all this going, but for building E, we do have a regulation change that we're submitting that allows us to go back to the interpretation for a less tall building to be residential only. And it's all driven by the Brainerd House, really. And so we have all of these considerations that have come up because that's here already, right? And we designed the whole entire site around it. So what we're here today saying is we think we made something that looks pretty cool. It gets to the balance between residential and commercial, the way that we all wanted. We're gonna take the field and we're gonna try to make it work. But we have identified this as the weakest part of our business plan right now, this wing, okay? And we're submitting regulations that would allow us, if that didn't work, we would take a few of these units out of A and put them back in here. We will not know until later in the process. We've already designed these buildings. What happens, I'll give you a couple of things that happen on the design team when you make such changes. We go from having 9-foot ceilings on the residential level to when you say you want to keep it retail and commercial, you go up to 12-foot, okay? Because you need a different fit up inside the space. You can't just do that on that one portion of the footprint, so it goes all the way through. Now you have the whole rest of this building that goes around in both of these on residential that have 12-foot ceilings in your residential apartment, which is like insane, but it's kind of cool. I mean, you go to Europe and you see you see that all the time, right? From a long time ago. So we're basically saying, okay, listen. At this point, everybody knows Uncle Fred and I are trying to do something here. So we're in, okay? And we're showing you how we can accommodate the request. We'll take the field, but that regulation change that we're saying we could go all residential up to 50 feet if we do the setback. That's what we're asking for in case we fail. And we'll have known that before we build building A. So that we can make the shift later.
Okay.
Does that all make sense? I'm sorry that that's a mouthful, but.
Other questions or comments by members of the commission?
I just wanted to ask, do you have underground parking for this building A? For the
No,
okay.
it's all surface.
They get a nice view, but they don't have covered parking.
Exactly, yep,
That's their
yep.
trade-off.
But I will say this, and I had never thought of it. Those terraces looking out back towards the bridge, those will be cool units. And we think that they could be premium units for that reason. Otherwise, having 18 units all by themselves is not terribly efficient. You have the elevator just for that few folks. There are costs associated with it, but I think it'll work. That part, that's not what I'm worried about on this plan. It's really this section up here.
Other questions or comments from members of the commission?
How was the percentage of green space, what is the percentage of green space at? Did it change overall? Is it
It's,
No,
yeah,
no.
we're still in the
20?
30%, yeah, in the 30% range. But it'll be updated.
Most of what we did was shifting within the volume defined before, right? So we put the retail and commercial into the footprint, and then you have to change the facades to make it all look right. Paul's comments, I think he really nailed a few things. Those second floor balconies being the parapet wall versus see-through. When you're walking into a professional commercial space, that's a nice touch, right? Rather than some guy drinking a beer, right? 5 feet up, that kind of thing. So there are some there's some nice pieces in those building elevations, I think, that addressed the shift nicely. And also you have those extra 3 feet I talked about, so you are a little bit more separated from that second level.
Other questions or comments from members of the commission?
So in your next reiteration, you're gonna talk a little bit more about the landscaping and stuff? Because
Yeah, we could.
I think we could do that now.
Yeah, if you go to the other map up there, I can go to the other plan.
Does it show the sidewalks on the next plan?
Yeah.
Okay. The crosswalks too?
Yes.
Okay. There was a lot of effort that went into the pedestrian experience here. And we were talking about this at dinner beforehand. You have some sidewalks that are very close to other sidewalks, yet you have an opportunity for intimate seating spaces and things like that gives you, especially along the front of this building and our main green space in the front of Brainerd, right? And approaches to it. So, but let me let Nick do his thing. He's certainly going to be better than I. There's any other.
Did you get the lights down a little bit?
Sure. You can go down a bit. Somebody must have control of lights. Yep, see?
There we
It's magic.
go. For the record, Nick Ushjack, landscape architect, CCA. There were some comments basically about the existing trees and the making some reference to what was on the site to begin with. And we are, by necessity, removing the dawn redwoods. In this iteration of the plan now, we are proposing to replace the dawn redwoods at some key locations on the site. We are introducing a group of 3 dawn redwoods at the intersection of Main and Marlborough. We are also introducing a grouping of dawn redwoods at the main entrance. These will initially go in at about 10 to 12 feet height, so that they will have some size to them to begin with. In addition, there is an individual dawn redwood down here by the Hart Jarvis building. So we are referencing the existing planting that we are removing. Also, in various locations on the site, we are introducing more white pines, because there are white pines presently along the south edge of the site that are existing. Along the south edge of the wall here, we are, where space permits and utilities permit, we are adding evergreens, combinations of spruces and hollies and white pines, also over here at the southeast corner. As far as what you're experiencing along Marlborough Street, when you're coming up Main, there are combinations of shade trees. There's some low screening to the pharmacy building. And up here, we're keeping a grove of existing trees. So the combination of new plant material, the existing plant materials, and then as you move along to Marlborough Street, you have a small courtyard off to the side here with flowering trees against a backdrop of existing trees. There is a large sassafras tree, 60 inches in diameter, which will be preserved. As we come up to the coffee shop, there is a larger buffer area now that the driveway is 18 inches in width. So basically, 18, yeah, that would be a good trick. 18 feet in width. So along the coffee shop here now, we have a row of shade trees in combination with hedges, grasses, so that the experience as you're walking by it is varied. You have the canopy of shade trees, you also have flowering trees, and you have hedges and grasses so that the cars are shielded from view, but you can still look over at the building as you're walking by it. So there'll be evergreens, there'll be roses, there'll be ornamental grasses, so it'll be a more interesting tapestry of shrubs as you're walking by. So once again, we have the redwoods here. As we continue down Marlborough Street, there is the amenity area. These are all existing trees, as we mentioned last time. We are preserving a large magnolia, we're preserving the evergreens, we're preserving the dogwood. There's a large lawn area. We have shade trees at the entry to the amenity area, flowering trees along the commercial area. We have evergreen screening separating the amenity area from the pool area. Now, coming along the front of the residential, building E, there will be shade trees every 30 feet or so. And once these mature, the canopies will knit together so that we'll have a solid canopy of trees. Once the trees reach maturity, they'll actually be up at the top floor. They'll be shielding the upper levels of the building on the north side. And in addition, Perry Avenue now, we've changed so that this is all a tree-lined street. Once again, these are shade trees, 30, 40, 50 feet on center. The canopies will join together. At maturity, these trees will reach rooftop level. And in between, at the various balcony courtyards, there'll be shrubs to screen the various balconies at ground level. As Steve mentioned earlier, the sidewalk has now been moved up along the street. So now we have all of our planting within the buffer area. As we come down behind building F, there's a combination of evergreens. There's a retaining wall here. So as you're looking from Perry Avenue, this retaining wall will be screening the parking below. So that whole feel of the canopy and the street-lined, tree-lined street is basically what we're trying to achieve. And the entire complex is, we're trying to achieve a park-like setting. So wherever there are islands, where there's an opportunity to put a shade tree, we're putting one to the maximum extent possible. So.
Okay. Other questions or comments by members of the commission? We're going to continue this meeting, but are there any questions or comments by members of the audience? Yes, ma'am. You have to come up here.
Hi, I'm Linda Casillo from Perry Avenue, and I just wanted...
You have to probably speak to the microphone, would be terrific.
Linda Casillo from Perry Avenue. I just wanted to understand again what you meant by the sidewalks were 3 feet back. I'm not sure what that meant.
For the record, Steve Sullivan, you have the edge of the road.
Yep.
And then there'll be a grass strip, and then you'll have a 5-foot wide sidewalk. So it's 3 feet off the edge of the road was the edge of the
So there's
sidewalk.
road, 3 feet sidewalk,
Yes.
and then the trees?
On the other, yes.
On the other side, okay. That was all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there questions or comments from members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Lisa Byron. I'm a Portland resident, and my husband and I are seeking a location for a coffee and donut shop. So I've spoken with Mary Dickerson as well about this, but and to address the commission members' aspect of the drive-through, this is something that we were really interested in, and wondering if, because not only does the coffee shop speak to those who are commuting on the stretch of road 66, but also invokes a family atmosphere for getting together in the community. So it's something that would be sort of a marriage of those two. But are you only seeking proposals from franchises, or is it also independently owned businesses?
If you want to negotiate with the developer.
Oh, sure.
You can certainly do that, but not in this meeting.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. We're curious about that. Okay. And that was my only question right now.
Other questions or comments by members of the public? Okay. Hearing none, the next order of business is to motion to continue this meeting to the 21st? Yes. So I need a motion to continue this hearing into the meeting of December 21st. No, we just.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. So this meeting will continue, this hearing will continue on the meeting of December 21st. Next order of business is a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor? Aye. All right. We're adjourned.